Here it says decide whether enough information is given to prove that triangles are congruent. If there is enough information, state the congruence postulate or theorem you would use. So we're checking if these triangles are congruent, like we were a minute ago on the other video, and they didn't tell us that we had to use any particular reason. So we're checking what reason and if they are congruent. So looking at this first one here, I see that I have a side and an angle at A, and then this side from A to C marked. And then I have the same kind of matching markings over here with the angle D, and the angle is between the two sides on each of them. Make sure that the markings are in matching locations. Sometimes if they're really trying to trick you, they'll give you one that looks like side angle side and one that looks like angle side side, and so if your triangles aren't matching, then they're definitely not going to be congruent to each other. These triangles are congruent. We will be using side angle side because we've got two sides and the angle that's in between marked congruent, so this is going to be the side angle side congruence postulate. The one in the middle here, they share this side in the middle. So marking that to add to our information. And in this one, the angle is not between the sides that are marked, so it's not side angle side. So we have to look some more. It looks like it would be angle side side, which is, again, not allowed, but since it is a right angle, it is hypotenuse leg. Always watch for that. It looks like it's going to be angle side side, again, which remember is not one of our reasons, then check if it's hypotenuse leg, and it is a lot of the time when you have that happen. So this particular one is the hypotenuse leg congruence theorem. On number 12, things I can know in this picture, I've got an isosceles triangle in the bottom, which would mean that this angle here is equal to this angle here, but that doesn't help me in the other triangle very much. But they do share this piece in the middle, so I can mark that congruent, but in the top triangle I only have two pieces marked. In the bottom triangle everything's marked, so they don't have enough matching markings, so these are not congruent. Here's another one where they are giving you this information, asking you for the missing piece, and again, they may or may not draw a picture for you. I set myself up with a picture for each one, and I would always draw these out for myself as I work these problems. It says that JR is congruent to DF, so I'm marking them congruent. It says that JM is congruent to DB. In this one, it's telling me to use side, side, side. It's probably the easiest one to do. We just need the missing side. What are the sides that they didn't already tell us? So that would be side RM congruent to side FB. The second one, I'm going to use these pictures over here, says that JR is congruent to DF and that JM is congruent to DB, and it wants us to use side angle side. So the angle needs to be between those two sides. The angles that are between the two sides are going to be angles J and angle D. So I was just drawing an arrow there. Angle J congruent to angle D. The third one in the list here is telling us to use hypotenuse leg. I'll use this picture over here for this one. To use hypotenuse leg, you need a right angle in each triangle, and they said that RM is congruent to FB. RM and FB, they gave us the hypotenuse. This is the hypotenuse piece here. They said that J is a right angle, and they said that J is congruent to D, so D will also be a right angle. So in this problem, we need a leg, and there's actually two answers that we could put. We could put JM congruent to DB, or we could put RJ congruent to FD. Either one of those will be correct. I'm going to list both of them. So we could say JM congruent to DB, or we could say that RJ is congruent to FD. So two choices there because you already have the hypotenuse, you've already got the right angles. You needed just one set of corresponding legs to finish that one out. Here we're going to do a proof, and they've got a lot of it filled in for us, and we're just going to fill in the missing pieces. The given has midpoint in here. Remember that when they give you vocabulary words like this, a lot of the time you're going to be using the definitions of those vocabulary words for reasons. You can see they've already even filled that in. Definition of midpoint, definition of midpoint. We're going to use that because it was 2 times. We're going to use it twice. B is the midpoint of AE. And what that would mean is that AB is congruent to BE. And so this was given, and then by the definition of midpoint, we were able to say that AB congruent to BE. Then they also said that B is the midpoint of CD. So that means this other set of pieces is going to be congruent. And so I'm going to say DB is congruent to BC. Again, this part was given, and the reason for saying that is the definition of the midpoint. Now, these are touching triangles, and remember, when they make this sort of bow tie picture, we can have our vertical angles being congruent here in the middle, and that's the next thing that they did. They named the angles for us, and we just need to fill in vertical angles congruent for our reason. Then we're able to say that the triangles are congruent, and look at the pictures. They have matching markings. Look at only one triangle to figure out what the reason is going to be. One of the angles is marked, and it is between the 2 sides, so it is going to be side angle side, since the angle was between those 2 sides, and it's congruence postulate there. So side angle side congruence postulate. The last part of these notes has another proof. It says complete the proof, and we have just blank here, nothing given. So we're going to set up a T-chart here to make our proof. We have 2 things given. Again, one of them is the midpoint. So we're going to use that midpoint in our proof. I'm going to start by filling in some of my given here. WX is congruent to YX. That was given. Make sure it's marked. Yep, it's marked. We are also given that Z is the midpoint of WY. Given again. Sorry for the bad handwriting on midpoint there. Now let's think about what that means. If Z is the midpoint of WY, that means that to each side of Z is congruent. And now let's say that in our proof. Since we were able to figure out what that meant for us, we need to state that in the proof because we're going to use that. And we got that because we knew the definition of the midpoint. Now let's look at our picture because we're out of givens and we're out of things that those givens were leading us to. These are touching triangles. Remember, when they're touching, a lot of the time they share information, like they share this side in the middle. And so we're able to use that shared side and say that it's congruent to itself. And you're doing this because it's a piece of the left triangle and it's a piece of the right triangle. So really it exists in 2 different places, so we're listing it congruent to itself. Reflexive property of congruence there. And now looking at the picture, we do have enough information to say that the triangles are congruent. We've got side, side, side going on right here. So we can name our congruent triangles. And say the side, side, side congruence postulate is our reason why they're congruent. And that's the notes for today.